G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR. For today's video, I'm going to take a look at the 2021 ruck options that we've got available. I'm going to take a look at the top 10 most expensive rucks, quickly talk through some of those. We'll then take a look at some value picks, but I think for me the main discussion is whether or not we go set and forget, Grundy and Gawn, or else you pair one of these blokes with probably Braydon Preuss. He's been the man that lots of people are looking at this year in order to save some money in the rucks. I don't think many people are going for someone like a Nick Nat or a Rob or these types of players. I think it's either one of the two big boys with Braydon Preuss, or else, as I said, go the set and forget. But what I will do is I will skip past Gawn and Grundy at this stage because I will talk about them a little bit later and just go through some of the options that at least we've got here in the top 10 in regards to starting prices. So some of my thoughts, as I said, Gawn and Grundy, absolute locks for mine. Todd Goldstein, the issue with him is his age. I've said this for the last couple of years though, and he's still averaged really well for a ruckman, but nothing like obviously the two big boys. But for me, 33 in July, he's just getting over the hill. He's been a warhorse for us in SuperCoach over the years, but I think his time has come to start declining in scoring. So I know for me, Toddy Goldstein. Nick Nat, well, he's got potential to go really big, doesn't he? But it's always that concern of durability. Is the value there also? You know, we could have got him at 500k to start last season. This year is close to that 600k mark. But look, if you had got on him, George got on him last year at the right time. He just went bang, bang, bang. I think for about 6 weeks, along with maybe a Bont. I don't know if it was at the same stage, but they were just dominating the competition in regards to averages, 5-week averages. Smash it out of the park, but can you rely on him to back that up or go better? I probably don't think so. So a no for me. Rolly O'Brien, well, he's one of these guys that I think in the future can really break in close to that uber elite status, but for me the value probably isn't there at 570. If you're getting him at 500, I think there's a little bit more meat on the bone, and you could look to go him as a pretty safe sort of 100 to 105, maybe pushing up to a 110 average. But for me, yeah, look, he's got a great ceiling as well. That's another thing to keep in mind. But when you've got other options like Gawn, Grundy, for me, I just wouldn't start with a Rob. Marshall, definitely start with him, but not in your rucks. Get him in your forward line. I'd pair him with a Tracy, is that loophole DPP swing as your R3. So in case of emergency, one of these guys goes down for a couple of weeks, you can swing Marshall in there if you need to. But definitely not in the rucks, I don't think. But as a forward, really love that selection. I'm locking him in anyway. Reece Stanley, don't go with him. 7 games last year. The Geelong ruck roundabout, what do they do down there? Blokes like Radigalia, Fort, I don't know if Abbott's still there. If he might have gone to St Kilda and may not even be in the list now. I'm not too sure. But you never really know what's going to happen down there. So just know for Reece Stanley. Tim English, well, I've got Steph Martin now. The Steph Martin factor. What does Steph do? Does he come in as more of an off-field mentor? Is he expected to play the majority of the games next year? I'm really not too sure. So given all those question marks, wouldn't go near in English as a starting pick anyway. Lycett, he's just a yo-yo. He'll give you a 140 one week, then an 80, a 60, 100, all over the shop. He's been in the system for long enough. With Laddams as well in the team, I just wouldn't go near him. Just don't go there. And Paddy Ryder, again, look, if he was a ruck forward, you may look at him. I still wouldn't, to be quite honest, but as a pure ruck, absolutely no for me. You've got Marshall who you get in your forward line. As I said, if Marshall was a pure ruck, I wouldn't look at him personally, but given the fact he's in the forward line, yes. Ryder doesn't even have that DPP swing. Getting a bit too old, so yeah, a no for Paddy Ryder for me. Let's have a look at some of the value options now. If you're looking for like a real pod option, a wacky pod option down in your defensive lines, then Ben McAvoy could be someone that you'd look at. Certainly not in your rucks, I don't think, but 460 almost there. There is a role vacated by Sicily down back there. Does a big boy take on that role? I know they don't even really rate Segley as the number 1 ruck, so does he go back to that? Possibly. So I'd maybe look to see how he goes to the first couple of rounds or in the preseason. Look what his role is going to be. And if you want a pod, maybe look at him in the defensive lines. The big O, I love this bloke as a Brisbane supporter. Our most improved player, in my opinion, over the last couple of years, probably was someone like a McCluggage. A lot of blokes have improved out of sight, to be quite honest, but the big O is one that really stands out for me. He's number 1 ruckman down there. I don't rate Archie Smith as a selection. I think if Smith didn't have another year to go out in his contract, would have probably kept on to Steph Martin in the end. But I don't rate Smith. Fullerton may be able to come in, chop out in the ruck. Joey Daniher will be the other chop out, I think. But the big O for me is really good around the ground, really damaging up forward. Hasn't got a great hit out to advantage rate. But then again, he does have Neil roving. That helps, and someone like a Jared Lyons or a good clear inside the lines. But it's for me. Are you going to use this bloke as a stepping stone? I think he's too much if that's the case. And do you want to finish with him when you got players like Grundy and Gawn? I don't think so. So for me, it just probably doesn't make sense to start with a big O, I don't think. Now, the Nank, he's an interesting pick. I'm just looking at his last 3 finals here. So 113, 153, 136 in the grand final for a 134 average during those last 3 games. Had a pretty poor season average there of 82.4, but he's the number 1 ruck now. Soldo, I think he's out for the year with a knee. Callum Coleman-Jones, he did naughty with some COVID breaches. I think he may be suspended for the first month, maybe. I'm not too sure. I may be wrong with that. So don't take that as gospel, but I'm pretty sure he is. So he'll be the number 1 man there. But again, same as the big O, I suppose. I just probably wouldn't go there. Braydon Preuss we'll talk about in a minute. Steph Martin, again, I've sort of talked about him already. Look, he's a real shining light at Brisbane during some dark days for us and won a BNF for us and in our top sort of 5 players for a number of years there. So I love the man, Steph Martin, what he's done for us. Goes to the Dogs with my blessing. I'm really disappointed we didn't keep him for 1 more year because he deserves some real success. So I hope he goes well there. But yeah, 272. Look, if in the preseason games he comes out and goes a 95, he'll really tempt some people, but for me, big no. And Tom Hickey, well, look, don't know what's going to happen with Naismith. Sinclair, I don't really rate as a ruckman, so he could come in and maybe take that number 1 role. But geez, it'd be ballsy starting with him. It could be some sort of wacky move if he does come into that number 1 role, during the season. You may even look to upgrade from a Tracy to him to make some really quick cash. He's looking to get to that 400k mark pretty quickly. But that's probably the only wacky move you'd look to do, and I wouldn't look to start a Hickey. So now we'll take a closer look at the Braydon Preuss selection. There are some ticks there, or some potential ticks anyway, and I think these are some of the reasons why some people may be looking to start this bloke in 2021. The first thing, and this is a big thing, he's finally landed that number 1 ruck role up there at the Giants. For years, he's been stuck behind Todd Goldstein and Max Gawn, but now he should be the number 1 man up there. They've got Mumford there. Briggs is a younger player, but I think it's his role to lose, and that's what he's been craving for a number of years, and this is the best thing for his career. It was really bizarre, I think, choosing to go to Melbourne, going to Max Gawn. He knew that he'd have massive competition there. Did they see him more as that forward that could ruck relief? I'm not too sure, but it didn't work out that way. Great now for Preuss anyway that he's at the Giants. He could potentially average 85 to 100. Some people have even said 105 to 110. I think that's a little bit big in my opinion anyway, but I think he should be pretty safe for somewhere between a 75 to an 85 average possibly. Is that enough? For some people it is, and we'll take a look at how you can use this money in other ways shortly. The solo ruck scores, I've picked 2 random ones there from 2017, 111 points against Geelong. Then in round 16, 2019, 140 points against Carlton, which was against Cruiser. He'll be hungry for his opportunity, as we said. He's got a big body, a mature body, and he's got an okay hit out to advantage rate. And he does have the potential, and this is another big reason why people are looking to select him, obviously being that mid-price option, to make 100 to 200k if all things go well. Let's have a look now at how you can use some of that other money. So a balance of points. I've used a couple of random examples here. So Max Gawn and Rory Thompson, they've paired up for 875,300, and they've gone Preuss and Luke Ryan in the back line. So going with that mid price in the ruck, and then that premium option down there in defence. 879,500. So about a $4,000 difference there. If you say Gawn could get 135, Thompson 55, that averages out to 190 points. And then Preuss and Ryan at 85 and 105, and that 85 is based off his 2 solo ruck scores, which I'll take you through in a minute in 2020. Then that both averages out to be about 190 points. So you could say to yourself, well, it pretty much balances out that way. But there are some question marks and some concerns I do have about Preuss. The first thing, and we've said this, look at his games played there, 8, 7 and 3. He's had limited exposure in that number 1 ruck role. Can he do it for a whole season? Does he have the tank? Does he have the durability? We haven't seen him play near a full season before, so that is a big concern for me. Look, does he rest up forward when he's not in the ruck? Does he go straight to the bench? Again, I'm not too sure. I don't really rate him as a forward, so that's another concern that I've got as well there. He's got a really tough first month as well, so the Marshall Ryder combo, Darcy, who he should match up pretty well against, I think, and then Gawn and Grundy in the first 4 weeks. So that could be an absolute nightmare for owners. And if he goes 70, what are you going to do then? That's another big concern there. His other solo ruck scores as well from 2020. In round 12, 84 points against the Pies. And then in round 13, 85 points against the Dogs. So around that 84.5, well, it is an 84.5 average here for those 2 games. And that's not overly terrific, is it? What do you do if he does average 70 to 75 in this first month? Do you panic? Do you look to trade him out? And then how do you trade him out? You may have to use 2 to 3 trades, lose a premium from elsewhere, and that could cause you some real headaches. So I'm going to learn from my lessons last year and just go set and forget myself in the ruck. And look, if he gets dropped early in the year, we saw what happened with Jacobs last year. His owners after round 1 would have been wrapped, but unfortunately after that, it was a bit of a downhill time for him. So that's another concern that I've got there. Now, on to my most preferred structure for this year, the set and forget with Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy. Firstly, we'll look at their averages over the last 3 years. They've been the dominant ruckman of the comp during that time. Grundy, 130.5, 130, 120.6, and Max Gawn, 127.5, 128.4, and 139.9. So massive averages from those two blokes over the last 3 years. They're proven performers, and I don't think there's any reason why they'll go massively backwards this year. Brodie Grundy in particular, I certainly think that he's going to bump that average up again. It's common knowledge that he just didn't enjoy hub life last year. He's one of those blokes that enjoys his time away from the football club, got many interests off the field, and obviously being in the hub, he was just completely taken away from those types of things. So I think he'll come back in a much stronger mental state this year, be really, really hungry to improve. Because look, he does set himself really high standards, Brodie Grundy, and he would have been disappointed, I'm sure, with his year last year himself. So given the fact that he had a tough year of hub life, he's a great player. He's got a history of going 130 in 2018 and 2019. I think he'll certainly get back to his best form, and I think he's an absolute lock, a no-brainer selection for this year. I've got a note there that it will be around 13% of your total cap, but I do think that it is money well spent. The other caution I've got there is the fact that these two blokes, along with Rowan Marshall, do share the same buy, because my plan originally was, during the buys, if Max and Brodie did have the same buy, just to swing Marshall in there just for a week and only go one down in the rucks for that week. But given the fact that all three are out, that may be a little bit of a concern. And those people that plan really, really highly for the buys at the start of the year, well, that may put you off this structure slightly. But another thing I've got there is if a player has a high likelihood of going 125 plus in a position other than the midfield, then just lock them in, because we know that those uber numbers generally come from those midfielders, your Lockie Neal types, and your Titches back in the day, these type of players. So if you can get someone in your rucks, forwards, or your backs that are going to give you these elite numbers like the big midfielders do, then I'm always a big advocate for just locking these blokes in also. So these are the SuperCoach 2020 rankings for all players. So the first table, that's ranked by total points, and the second table is ranked by average points. So we can see Brodie Grundy there, number 6 overall for total points with 2,051. And Max Gawn, 9th overall for total points with 1,958. You skip to the rankings by average. Max Gawn goes all the way to number 1 with a massive average, 139.9. And Brodie Grundy finishes 7th for averages, 120.6. And then let's look at it in regards to purely the rucks for averages. So we look at Brodie Grundy there, Max Gawn, 120.6, 139.9. The next best average there is Goldie with 112. So nowhere near the two top dogs there. And remember, I think that Brodie Grundy had an unusually poor season, particularly for his standards and someone with his capability and his potential. But the amazing thing that I see here is that Max Gawn only played 14 games, yet he's still second for total points. Forget about the average. Missed 3 games and still second for total points. Every other bloke on this list played 17 games, and there are only 2 blokes in Nick Nat and McAvoy who played the 16 games. So that just shows how dominant Max Gawn is when it comes to these other rut selections. The other thing is, what is your plan to get in? I've got down the bottom there, it may take 2 to 3 trades to even get this bloke in. Remember, all the planets really need to align. You need to have the rookies that are ready to cull, and need to have those rookies that are possibly on the bubble, actually getting games to actually downgrade to get the money. Look, you may even panic and have to lose a premium if Gawn is such a must-have at some stage of the season, which I think everyone, the end goal for everyone should be to get Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy in by the end of the season. I think that's what most people's plans probably are. And the other thing is, hello, captain. 2020 scores, 185, 184, 163, 157, 153, and a couple of 150s there. So if you had jumped on him as a captaincy option during those weeks, you would have been absolutely laughing and would have had such a big, big advantage over the rest of the competition. And that's one thing that I find really big with Max Gawn, is I'm just going to lock him in basically every week as either my vice captain or my captain. A huge advantage with selecting Big Max. So what am I doing? Well, firstly, I'm learning from my mistakes last year and not making the same mistakes again going into 2021. I started with a real value option who I thought was a value option last year in Naismith. Obviously, went really well after a week and then completely downhill after that. I had other blokes during the season like Rob, Pete Laddams in there, Pitt and A, who worked well for a couple of weeks and went completely downhill. Mucked around with Segler types. So it was an absolute nightmare for me in the rucks last year. Not making the same mistake again. I'm just completing a line from the start and then not having to worry about it. Look, if one of these blokes do go down, the other advantage is that you can pretty much trade them to any other ruckman in the comp. If you start with a Preuss or someone and they go down, then what do you do there? Maybe Marshall can come in to your rucks, I know that, but do you really want him in the rucks? I'd prefer him in the forward. So things can get a little bit dicey, I think. So I'm just going with two absolute proven performers. I'm selecting two of the top 6 captaincy options, in my opinion. They've both got huge ceilings, these blokes. We went through Gawn's scores as well, but Grundy is more than capable of going to 150 plus on his good day as well. So always keep those two guys in mind for your captaincy loopholes. And I'm locking in Marshall in my forwards and selecting Tracy, as I said before, as my R3, just in case one of these blokes do go down. You can swing him in case of emergency, and I think it'd be really good cover for a couple of weeks. I suppose if these guys are out for more than 3 weeks, then you've got a bit more of a decision on your hands. But if they're out just for the 1 to 2, for example, then Marshall is a perfect option just to swing in there. But remember, you do need to have that DPP swing as your R3 to make that happen. So, look, they're my thoughts, guys. Really interested to hear what you're doing. I know that there's a lot of people that are a fan of the Preuss selection, a lot of people that just will not go near him, probably like myself, but I can see merit for each way that you go about it. But I'm certainly going with the set and forget. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Again, let me know what you're thinking down there in the comments section, and I'll see you soon for the top 10 forwards video. Take care. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers. Bye.